Welcome back, guys. Today we're back here on the third installment of Modes on Guitar using tool songs, right? We're going to learn the modes, and today's mode is the third degree, the third mode, which is Phrygian. And that's the third mode because if we follow the C major scale, C, D, E, E being the third degree of the C major scale makes it Phrygian, right? So now, had we started in, let's say, F major, well, then the third step would be F, G, A, and then we'd be talking about A Phrygian, right? So let's take a quick minute here to talk about something, because we've run over this topic about using these large steps for doing the let's call them whole steps, large steps, whatever you want to call them. But we're actually gonna start calling them by their name, right? Originally, we're just working our way up to like the technical part of what this is all about, right? So if we start at the C major scale, right? Right, then F, G, A, then B, C. Well, this right here, this first step from the first to the second degree from C to D is a whole step, right? So it's then a whole step from D to E, then a half step from E to F, right? So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That formula for that, that's why on the right side of this box, when we look up here at this little chart that we have up here, it says it has a column that's called formula. And what that formula is saying is that's why when we started with C in the Ionian in the first degree, remember when I said there was no sharps or flats? It's because what we're actually talking about is the degrees of steps within that mode, right? So in the C major Ionian, there are no sharps or flats, right? Because it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. No sharps or flats. Because the third degree is a full whole step. Look, 1, 2, 3. But now, when we move it, let's slide up here to D Dorian. Look what happens on the third step of D Dorian. Remember from last week we did D Dorian? Right? Because we're starting at the second note in the C major scale. That's what made it D Dorian. Well, the third step is a flattened third. Look. D, E, F. That's what makes it a minor mode or a minor scale. That flattened third is the easiest way to identify if you're in a minor mode. As soon as you see that you have a minor third in the scale that you're playing in, you're in a minor mode. That's it. There's going to be modes that have more than just a minor third. You're also going to have, by the way, D Dorian also has a minor seventh, because if this was the eighth, right? Because remember, when you go from the tonic to the octave, that's 8 steps. Well, if you're a half step down, like you do here in C, right? 1 to 8. The step right under that is half a step, which is B. But when we do D Dorian, look what happens. That's a whole step, which means now that is a flattened seventh. So D Dorian has a flattened third and a flattened seventh. This is important because as we move on, we're going to see that different modes and different scales, even though we started with C major, remember all of this is coming from C major, even though we started at C major, you're going to land on different flats or sharps, depending on how you want to look at it, but we're just going to talk about flats. So in D Dorian, the third is flattened, and the 7 is flattened. So remember, the first, the tonic to the octave is basically your range, and then what's happening within those steps is going to tell you what mode or scale you're playing in, right? So I know if I'm playing in D and my third is flattened, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the 7 is flattened, well then that tells me, okay, I'm in D Dorian, right? So using this formula, we're gonna start looking now at this column on the far right to tell us what mode we're in, because we're gonna be able to start identifying what songs are using these different modes. This week, I chose to use Eulogy for E Phrygian. I chose Eulogy because there's only a couple of songs that Adam Jones uses in the key of E, right? The ones that are that pop out to me the most is Ticks and Leeches, right? That starts on an E, right? That's all in E. Why is it E Phrygian? Well, because the next note after the E is a flattened second, which is what happens here. C, D, E, F. Here's E Phrygian. Okay, so we have flattened sixth, flattened seventh, one, two, three. That's still a flattened third because there's only 4 frets between the two, between the first tonic and the third. Look here. That's a major third. Look at D Dorian. There's only 4 frets between the two. That right there is still a minor third. Even though it was a whole step from the second, since the second was flattened, it's still a minor third because a major third would have looked like this. Or, and that sounds whack. So let's get back to E Phrygian. E Phrygian means we're starting at the E of the C major scale. We're going to try this a couple times, play it in different places just like we did in the other videos, right? Let's start here. See what we did there? All we did is use the same, remember this scale? We just started at E and kept going until we hit the octave. Or, there's an E there. Or if you want to get crazy and just jump to the open string. Right? Again, this is the benefits of learning the notes versus learning the tabs. The tabs don't tell you the story. So, okay, let's get back to E Phrygian again. So here we go, E Phrygian. Right? So the song Eulogy starts on an E. Right? Right? That's how I was able to identify what it was that he was doing here, because he was doing this. It's E Phrygian because of this step. Okay? Once I identified that, then I started taking apart the rest of the notes in the song. So the notes in the song are E, F, G, A, B, and C, and then obviously D, and open D. Right there, the moment, remember the box of 4? If we look at that and we pay attention to the B, C, E, F box, that right there tells me that we're in C major, right? You follow along here. So we're in C major. So what does that tell me? 3 steps up is going to be E, which is going to be E Phrygian, since I already identified the notes. Now, obviously, I learned how to play the song before I was able to even identify the notes. But by listening to the song, and by the way, I don't have like perfect pitch that I can hear a song go, oh, that's a D, and oh, that's an E. I don't have that, right? I said I have to actually do this. Right, and then once I get it and start thinking about it, I can figure out and keep moving from there. So let's play the different parts of the song so we can identify the notes that and how they come into play in the song Eulogy, right? So let's play the opening riff first. By the way, I'm going to play this without distortion because the distortion kind of muddies it up. And that's not really good to be able to listen to it and learn from it, all right? So the opening riff to Eulogy starts with basically a volume swell on the E, right? What I just do is I don't strike the notes, I just hammer them on, so I just go. Now with the distortion, that sounds different, right? Then the rhythm is just. That's a funny little pull off that we do there, but if you just get the rhythm in your head, you'll eventually get it. It took me a lot of practice to figure it out. This is where we move into the chorus. So this chord progression it's pretty simple, right? But the notes are important, and we're going to use this to also start talking about intervals, right? So this is the first interval. So we're going, right? So that's E. Now we're going to come down here to the A, and we're going to strike the A and then hop up to the B, right? And then we go. That was the wrong note. But so what we're going to talk about here now is the relationship between intervals within modes, right? So again, E is the tonic. Right? So we start that riff by doing E. Right? So we go from E, and then we go A, B. Well, what that is actually we're doing E is the first in E Phrygian. So E is the tonic, right? A is the fourth, and then B is the fifth. Remember, I've always been talking about what it means when we go from the first to the fifth and the first to the fourth and all of those things. Is because there are certain intervals in music that naturally harmonize with the tonic note, right? So that means this is E. This is the fifth of E, which is B, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? That happens to be the fifth in E Phrygian. It also happens to be the fifth if I play E major. Let me play E major the way we normally would. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or if I played it here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So you see how nice that sounds? The fifth sounds against the first, the tonic. Listen. See how they harmonize against each other? I'm going to play what's called a tritone, which is a flattened fifth. You might recognize this from an old Rush song. See how there's dissonance between the two? The fifth always sounds right. The fourth does too. The third does also. Here's the third. That's why when you look at major chords, what we're actually playing, when we're playing a major chord, is we're playing the first, the third, and the fifth of that scale. And that's why it always harmonizes and sounds so good. Let's use the most famous major chord that almost everybody learns on guitar first, the C major chord, right? Which is this one here, right? Starting C. So what are those notes? Well, those notes are C, E, G, C, E. C, E, G, and C, and E. So here we're going to play it like this. C, E, G, C, E. See now how chords work? Those are called chord tones. So if I'm playing a C major chord, I'm going to play C, the third, which is the E, and then the G, which is the fifth. If I wanted to make the C minor, I would have to flatten the third, right? So this is kind of difficult to do, but, you know, I'm not going to do it like that. If I wanted to play it here, right? C, this is C major. C minor, here's the flattened third. See the flattened third right there? This is the E, which would be the major third. This is the flattened third. So look. That's a higher G. So that's C minor, C major. Okay? So I wanted to talk about that because we're going to talk about intervals and why the fifth and the tonic always sound so good, why the fourth and the tonic always sound so good, and why the third, when you're playing major tones, sounds right. But when you're playing minor tones, you're going to want to use a minor third if you're going to be playing them against each other, right? So here's E. This is the major third. Minor third would be this note flattened, which is always one string down, one whole step down. So it just depends what song you're playing, but if you're playing in minor, like we're here, we are playing in minor here. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about chord tones, I wanted to talk about intervals, and I wanted to talk about the relationship between major and minor thirds and what happens when you play those intervals in different ways. Since we're playing in E Phrygian, we have a minor third, right? Okay, so let's get back to the song. When we move into the chorus, what we're actually doing here is we're doing the fourth to the fifth interval. What are we doing there? We're going from the flattened third to the fifth. We keep resolving on the fifth because the fifth sounds naturally good in your ear. The fifth is resolving against the tonic, which is the E. So there, we got that part of the song now, right? So we're doing the E, resolving to the fifth. That part of the song also comes too when you're coming out of that chorus, right? What we're actually doing there is, these are extended chords. If you pay attention, let's get back to the chord conversation, right? So let's take a look at this chord right here. These are extended chords. This is the part when we come out of the chorus, the part that goes. So let's take a look at this chord structure real quick. Remembering the conversation we just had about chord structure. Here we go. We're going to do, this is an A extended chord. We're obviously in drop D. So that means that the way we're going to work here, let's pay attention to the degrees and the intervals. A, E, E is the fifth of A, E, A, B. Where's B coming into the story from? Well, B is the fifth of E. That's B right there. See how nice that rings against itself? So basically what we're playing here, first intervals, fifth intervals, octaves, first again, and then a fifth. So you're going to want to learn this chord right here because this chord is used a lot in Tool songs, man. I'm talking about a lot. It sounds great, right? So you get a lot of this. Right? He does a lot of that. He likes to also do a lot of this, basically where we're starting here from the first and then we're kind of shoot up here to past the 12th fret to the higher octave, right? So all that's happening there is we're doing the same thing. A to D, which is the first and the fourth. And then we're just sliding it up to the next octave, A and D, right? So we're kind of bouncing around here a lot, right? Because there's so many things that I want to basically show you guys as we're moving through these lessons, because I'd like for these things to start to compound against each other. And hopefully by the time we make it to the end of the modes, which by the way, I'm not going to cover Locrian just because, well, just look at it. It's a disaster, right? It's all flats. And I don't even want to talk about it. There isn't a lot of music in Locrian. Definitely not Tool songs, okay? But most music is not played in the Locrian mode. So we're just going to skip that anyway. So we are going to go through the rest of them. But by the time we get to the end of the class, or the lessons, or whatever you want to call this thing, the journey, right? I'm hoping to have exposed you to a lot more than just scales and a lot more than just how to play Tool songs, right? Instead, we're going to talk, I'm hoping you learned about intervals, you learned about chord structures, why that works the way it works, why the scales are connected to each other. So let me just show you that real quick, right? So C major. Now I'm going to do D Dorian. Now I'm going to do E Phrygian. Did you see the connection? It's just a continuation of the exact same notes. I'm just moving up the scale. Depending on where I start is what calls out the mode. So let's get back to Eulogy again. Right? Then there's that other riff, the part that goes, right? Same notes. E, F, G, resolving to open D. Then we have this, by the way, this part of the song is my favorite riff in the whole song. Just because of the intervals between the two, that higher E. Right? So remember, this is an E5. E, B, B is the fifth of E, E. Right? You could also, that's why in the video, if you saw me play the playthrough video, you see me do it 3 different ways. I do E here, I do E here, and I do E here. Same notes. As I move up in the neck and lower on the strings, there's a little bit of a different register because of the thicker string. But this one is the one I like the most. It's got the higher, I like that higher register. So basically we're doing E, B, right? So 1 to 5. So right there we're going E, B, C, resolve on G. Resolve on D. Right, let me get back to that. So we got that part. Then at the end, the part that ends that goes. Same note. We're still in E Phrygian. Here we go. E, slide up to F, D, to A. We're ending on E again. So we're just making a loop. So we're doing E, F, C, A. So we made our way from the E to the A, which is first to the fourth. That's why it sounds so good, because the fourth harmonizes against the first. Back to the E again. Now we're back here at the E again, which is the tonic of the entire scale in the mode of the entire song. So hopefully we've been able to put this whole thing together and have it make some sense, right? So we started at E Phrygian. All those notes are in the song Eulogy. You saw us play all the parts, right? We did the D, E, F, right? E, F. Then we do the. Then we have the E. Played it different ways there. And then we have the outro riff. All right. So I hope you learned something here today. That was E Phrygian. We used the song Eulogy. You saw us use all the notes in the E Phrygian mode in the E Phrygian scale, right? We started with E, F. Next week, we're going to be doing F Lydian, which is the second major in the C major scale, right? Because we basically started with, we're going to talk about this real quick. Here we go. C, D, E, major third. Dorian, D, E, F, minor third. Phrygian, E, F, G, minor third. Now we're moving here to F. F, G, A, major third. We're now back into the second major mode in the C Ionian scale. All right, we're gonna get there. We just gotta keep coming back, man. We're just gonna keep connecting these dots, and it's gonna make sense. So here's F. Right. You see the connection between the E Phrygian and the F Lydian? Look. Same notes, I'm just going to resolve one note higher because I started one note higher. So when you start putting this all together and getting this map in your head about how all these notes are connected, then you can start making those connections, because like I said in the first video, when you start burning these little workshops and burning these scales in your mind, when you look at the fretboard, you're going to start seeing that map and how it's interconnected between all the scales. When I'm looking here at D Dorian, once I do this, that tells me already that the next scale is going to be Phrygian, because I'm starting on that flattened second. The box of four. All right, man. So I hope you're really learning something here. If you are, please subscribe, hit like, leave me a comment. Let me know what you like, what you don't like from the lessons. If you want me to change something else. I think I'm finally finding a groove here with some stuff that makes sense. And tell a friend, man. You know, this is a totally new approach to learning guitar. I'm hoping that I'm maybe catching on to something new, and I hope you guys are really enjoying it. Please keep coming back. Thanks for watching, man.